yesterday's papers? Who wants yesterday's girl? Who wants yesterday's papers?
Well, hello there. Welcome to the latest edition of Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. I am Loop Weekly editor Tim Wood, here today with. Let me get my hand out of view so you don't see me in two shots. Here with producer extraordinaire Lou Blassie. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you today?
Very good. And our guest to talk all things Methuen today. So, and probably many of you
My
are like,
favorite guest
who
ever.
the hell is this guy? So Rich LaRochelle has stormed onto the scene on social media. At the town council the city council meetings, stormed onto the scene, made himself a presence, not just on social media. He's doing good for the community. He's part of the organization efforts of Methuen Day, which we can talk a little bit about. I don't want to put you on the spot for too many details as it's still evolving, but so yeah. Rich is also Lou's biggest fan. If you notice,
It's mutual, Rich.
yes. If you notice in the comments, Rich is always in the comments for the show, saying, "I agree with Lou." So this is Rich. I agree with Lou LaRochelle.
Hey, listen.
Rich, how are you?
He's smart, and I believe he has a degree. So,
And
just gonna
and
throw
I'm
that out
dumb
there.
and don't have a degree.
no, I didn't say that. I'm
'Cause
just talking about Lou. He's a
We're
great
here
guy.
we're just here to talk about Lou, really.
Pretty
Yeah,
much,
that's right,
pretty
yeah.
much. It's the Lou show.
I have a degree. It's totally irrelevant degree, but I have a degree.
So Lou, how are you today?
So far, so good.
Very, as usually, very, very dapper, very
Really?
well kept.
Wow.
You know,
I love people who don't know me well yet.
how have you been watching what's going on this past week?
Not last night. No, I didn't watch last night.
Okay, so
I know that I saw the Tribune article. I did read the Tribune article.
and you know, here's the thing about the Tribune article.
Which, by the way, the headline was totally opposite of what
Yes.
the body of the piece
So
was.
I understand that they have to. Now, here's the thing about last night, and Rich, you I'm sure you will agree with this. The first 2.5 hours of the meeting was a snooze fest.
Yep.
It was really like, why am I here?
Couldn't find anything interesting
I
to talk
could be
about.
home watching Big Brother. I could be watching the that new show Castaways. I'm really addicted
good?
to. It's
Yeah,
really good. Watch that on my DVR. I'm like, I could be, talking to my wife. There's so many things I could be doing other than sitting here. It was just a lot of busy work, quite
Right.
honestly. Important stuff. They're talking city contracts, but I mean, and they were talking about the homeroom petition, but it was a lot of people like just wanting to hear themselves speak,
Right.
and the end result of that was a snooze fest. And at the same time,
Not at a city council meeting. I don't believe it.
so you had public participation
Yeah.
too, and that was not a snooze.
No, that's interesting.
The bulk of the public participation was focused on the Sweetheart Inn last night,
Okay.
because that was back on the agenda.
Right.
That was removed from the table, and the thought was this was the night that it was going to finally be voted on,
Okay.
for better or worse. So, the last half hour, and Rich had to leave. I mean,
But I did watch it and listen
of course
to it
you
on the
did.
way home.
Of course. But I mean,
What the hell did you have to do?
he's got a daughter.
I have a daughter.
Oh, okay, good.
I know he
Good.
looks like he's
Good
about
excuse.
21,
I know,
but
right.
I mean, and apparently your daughter is tired of people thinking that you're her brother. Is that the deal?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a big issue for her.
So
Perfectly acceptable excuse.
the last half hour was fireworks. It was first, Sweetheart Inn finally comes up for discussion, and Mike Condon was there, the owner of Sweetheart Inn. West Siders spoke their piece about the history, about
Just so
It'd
I
be a
know I'm
historic-
clear, give me the
Yeah,
Twitter version of what
absolutely.
they
So
disputed.
Sweetheart in 1 minute or less. Condon wants to sell it. It wants to be done. He lives in Salisbury Beach now. He's run businesses in town for 40 years. Been a councilman, a
Right.
committee member. He's done a lot of good for Methuen. Wants to sell it. Wants to subdivide it. So wants to sell it to Wayne Capilupo. Capiluno?
Developer.
Yes, developer.
SBS.
Okay.
SBS Bridge owns a couple restaurants in Salisbury. So
Oh, I know Wayne.
yeah,
Sure.
you know Wayne.
Okay, yeah. All right.
So, by all accounts, great guy.
Yep.
So, but in this case, they want to put a lot of properties on a 4-acre lot, and
The
that
neighbors are upset.
neighbors are irate. Remember we were talking about the community development board? Do you remember when we were talking about? That's what this is about.
Right.
Okay. That specifically about this deal, and so you have that thing going on with the community development board. 3 members resigning because they were being bullied by the mayor.
Which side does the mayor fall on?
The mayor wants to put 15 houses on this 4-acre lot, and it's just not zoned. Like in theory, it's not zoned for that.
Right.
But again, the zoning laws were written in a way that there was a loophole in there.
Sure.
That their lawyer took advantage of.
Right.
And so what they're doing is not illegal. It's just
So you have
the
legal
community
realities.
development boards were fighting. Community development board was fighting it.
Yep.
Thought they were winning it. Jajuga comes back to him and says, "I don't want to fight this anymore. I'm not paying for any. We're not as a city. We're not paying for any more legal fees. If you want to keep fighting this, it's on you.
Yep.
All legal fees, all responsibility, all legal liability is on you, the community development board members.
Right.
If you want to, so basically, blackmailing
Yeah.
for and so 3 board members resign. This thing keeps going in circles. They can't vote on it because now the board doesn't have a quorum. The mayor's not going to appoint anybody because the council knows whoever he appoints is going to be his guy that's going to want to vote yes on this.
Right.
So, board doesn't have a quorum. So, in the meantime, the clock is ticking on Mike Condon and Wayne having the permit to demolish it.
Right.
Okay? And we're now at the point first week of September is when the 6-month waiting period on the demolition is over.
Is it September 5th?
So September 5th is reportedly the date.
And then
now,
September 6th, we have the meeting.
Now, is he going to? Is Mike Condon going to have bulldozers there that day? No. I mean, he's
Maybe
got to
not.
move a lot of stuff out of there. So maybe not. Maybe so.
Maybe so.
I've seen stranger things happen.
There's a lot of money involved, and
Yep.
people
Yes.
can get mobilized quickly.
Yes.
So I think this is an issue to
It's more
maybe
about
try and get it done earlier rather than waiting for that meeting.
more about the permit expiring and having to relitigate the permit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So okay. So you've already got your fans here.
Wow.
Jana says, "Hi,
Hi, Jana.
Rich. Class of 2001.
Yep.
Nice
Hi,
job,
Everett.
Rich. Hey guys. Hey, Leanne. How are you? Okay. So we jumped the gun a little bit. Let's set the table. So 978-659-0072. Rich is going to be here until noon. We have a hard out today of 12:20, so there is no 2.5 hour show tonight. We're not going over the 4-hour Facebook limit.
I can actually stay longer now. I changed my schedule.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be here until 12:20 then. So here's what there's some things, specific things that we really want to focus on today, and I'm not going to limit the conversation, but there's 3 things that have happened this week. There is the Sweetheart Inn thing. Now what happened was what happened at the end of the meeting last night, for those who weren't watching, who haven't
Lulled
read,
to sleep.
who got lulled to sleep or switched to the Red Sox losing. stupid.
Tears.
Yeah, stupid. This new guy for the Philly, whatever. Anyway, we can't get greedy. I mean,
It's like
the
their
50,
eighth
the
loss.
50 games over.
Yeah.
I
you
think
know?
they were 9-1
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, the 50 games over 500. They're 10 games ahead. It's like we could have gone 11 games up. Okay,
I'd be happy with the 110 wins
serious.
for the year.
so okay, when you turned it off or you fell asleep, so they get to the vote. Okay, here they get to the Sweetheart Inn vote. George Kazanjian charter objects. Now George Kazanjian is for making this historic. Now this is now the line of defense now for the folks who don't want this to happen.
Yeah.
Okay? They're trying to make it a historic district.
Oh,
okay?
man.
They're trying to build this case that Thomas Dow lived there, this patriot.
Which is basically taking the land by eminent domain.
Now,
It's-
okay,
it's the next best
absolutely. And listen,
Especially
agree with
Methuen.
Lou.
Especially Methuen.
I agree. Just please, chime in whenever you want. I agree with Lou. So, I understand the people's case. I understand that I understand that they are getting screwed up in this community development deal. It is pure corruption.
Absolutely.
Pure. It is textbook corruption that will be taught in literally taught in textbooks that are on iPads 10 years from now.
On iPads.
Yes. So
Corruption from the standpoint of strangling the funds for the board.
so
litigation.
they were like and again,
Wayne and Mike aren't doing.
Wayne and Mike may disagree with this.
Yeah.
And I know that they would, obviously, but in the city's eyes, in the community development board's eyes, in the lawyers' eyes of the community development board, they were winning.
Okay.
They were winning in terms of this legal.
I just
approach.
wanted to put a fence around your corruption. Wayne and Mike are doing what they do.
Wayne and Mike
Mike's
have
trying
done
to get
nothing
his,
illegal.
Right. Nothing illegal.
Nothing illegal.
No.
That we know of.
No.
In terms of how they've gone about this, everybody's, oh, that's illegal. No, it really isn't. The corrupt part comes in here in terms of the community development board, how the mayor strong-armed
okay.
them.
Yeah. I just
Okay?
wanted to define that
Yes.
clearly.
I mean, so now we're talking about it being historic, okay? And we're trying, out of nowhere, we're building this case that Thomas Dow is this amazing patriot that we needed to protect this house, okay?
Okay.
It needs to be historic.
Yeah.
Now, listen, Mike has marketed this property as historic, okay? But that doesn't mean that we
Yeah.
just name it, that we just make it a historic district, okay? There is history in every part of this city.
That's right.
We don't make everything historic.
Right.
Hi, Heather.
Hello, Heather? Yes, you finally put a face. I know this guy. I thought he was 70. Honestly, I don't mean to be ageist, but the way he talks and with the
Well, according
the
to my
veracity, the knowledge, the level of input. I just expect that from a much older person. Quite honestly, a much more.
I have had my issues with historic commissions in the past,
So-
and especially Methuen's. I've had fun with them over the years here because it's particularly rabid in Methuen.
Now, like, Mike made
That's
a
my
great point
impression.
last night. Now, Mike got up and spoke, okay? Mike made a great point. The last time that he renovated, Sharon Pollard, the head of the
lead drum thumper
yes, the
of
lead
the Historical,
of the Historic
Commission.
Commission, along with Dennis Webster Green.
To her benefit, that wasn't a knock.
For
that's a
sure.
benefit,
No,
yeah.
this is not a knock. They do
She's
they
a
do
champion of
amazing
historic stuff,
things.
yes.
Festival of Trees, the Historic Commission, they do amazing things, okay? But the last time they renovated this building, she was there helping Mike
Demo it.
No, paint the cabinets. And
So there was no
There was
historical.
no talk of Thomas Dow then.
Yeah, because I know in Methuen they limit, what color you can paint the house and all this stuff. So there were no permits. There was no discussion with the Historical Commission
No.
about renovating.
And when
this
he
last
bought it, there was no discuss of it being historic.
Right.
Okay? So, and again, listen, I like Mike. I mean, the people that got up last night and spoke, I got up and spoke at the end because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Because, and it's nothing against the West Side people, but like this whole thing, the fact that they're forcing this historic vote And they were putting a lot of pressure on, so they haven't been able to get these counselors to flip
Right.
to vote it historic. So they're putting a lot of pressure on these counselors publicly last night. It wasn't working. But then they're getting up and making this impassioned plea about Thomas Dow. And I'm sorry. Literally, one of the folks got up and said, if you had just gone for 2 or 3 houses, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So if they had done 2 or 3 houses, we don't care if it's historic?
Right.
So, I mean, just please. Like, I understand that this is your last line of defense. I get it. Okay? But to get a few of those folks got up and spoke of corruption and doing the right thing and how this is wrong. Okay?
I agree with that. I think it's wrong.
It is. Well, okay,
It is
so
wrong.
at the
What,
end
the
of the
size
day,
of-
it is wrong.
Well, no.
Size of the development?
Well, no.
Yeah,
well, I
the
believe
over
that's
density of the
also
development.
wrong.
The way
but
that it's come to be.
the way that it's come to be, it should have never even been brought to be a historical issue.
Rich,
it should have never
but-
come to that in the first
It's not a
place.
historical
but
issue.
let me
We're
ask you this.
manufacturing
Community
a
Development
yeah.
Board, but then it was manufactured to be this way in the first
Right.
place, and it should have never gone there.
But let me ask you, because I don't think we actually pin you down on this. Going the historic route, is that wrong too?
I guess it depends on what has been demolished and what has been destroyed. I mean, people do have the argument that, there may be bodies buried underneath, or dogs, that's how they did it back then. I mean, that to me, I would say that probably puts a little historical issues into the property, but is that proven? Also, I know that Mike has previously said they pretty much gutted that place from ceiling to floor. But does that take away the historicness of that property?
So it doesn't. And one of the folks got up and made a good case that anything that was done on the interior is different than tearing down the exterior and tearing down the building. Great point.
I agree.
Great point.
So,
Is that consistent with their position on other historic houses under the Historic
That's
Commission?
a good question.
And to my knowledge,
Because I don't believe that's the
to my
case.
knowledge, no.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Again,
let's
you have to
just-
have the right shutters on.
But let's just say it is.
Yep.
Okay, let's just say it is. Mm-hmm. So now we have a decent point. Okay, but to in my opinion, and again, listen, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just somebody who cares and pays attention. Tommy, plug for you paying attention. 1 o'clock, I think he does it, or 1 or 2. Tommy, if you're online, put a comment in there. Tommy Duggan's podcast. People were giving me inadvertent plugs all night last night. They kept saying, I'm not in the loop, or I'm in the loop. It was great. I got up with my shirt, and everybody thought I just got up so people could see my shirt. But I got up because I'm a resident. I spoke as a resident last night. At the core of the issue, if we're going to talk about historic, if this was so historic, why was this not made historic 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago,
Right.
5 years ago?
Right.
That's and nobody has that answer for me.
Because this is a manipulation to serve the current purpose.
And listen,
Possibly.
listen, if you want to, and I'm
Probably.
I half agree with Lou on this.
oh wow, okay,
Finally,
wow,
I half agree.
we're winning over. I'm winning over, Rich.
So a little quick research here. Thomas Dow is a Minuteman, apparently. Mm-hmm. So Minutemen who have owned he owned a property in Methuen for 13 years, owned this property in Methuen for 13 years.
He owned the property. There's a lot of doubt in terms of whether he ever really lived there.
Yep.
Because his family lived there, but apparently when he came back, he moved out of the house.
So does that rise to the level of someone who served for the Minutemen? We can't touch their
I just like
houses?
I mean, God. So listen, if this was the case, and this is what I said last. If this was the case of this property was strangled away from the Dow family, and
It's not like Hannah Dustin in Haverhill where she scalped Indians.
no,
It's not that.
no, I mean this was not the case.
Yeah.
Okay, the Dow sold the property. It's been a restaurant. It's been sold 3 different times. When Condon bought it, it wasn't historic.
Right.
Okay,
This
whatever
concern
you
is
think,
manufactured.
It's manufactured.
Yep.
Okay, and please, if you're on the west side, if you're part of the petition, if you spoke at the council last night, I'm not against you. And I said this to Mike Samard. Mike. Oh my,
Mike is a great guy. Mike Samard.
Mike was amazing. Mike got up and he gave me his sheets. I'm going to do a separate show just on his sheets because what he presented at the meeting last night, just in terms of the facts, it was very enlightening. But a lot of the facts presented last night had to do with the community development board issue. Mm-hmm. It didn't have to do with the historic end of it. Mike was very passionate and just really laid out the whole case. Like if I'm a lawyer in terms on whether this should be developed, he laid out a great case. I didn't realize that Bill Buckley worked for Wayne.
Yeah.
I mean, that in and of itself is a ridiculous conflict of interest where this should not have even been considered, or it should have been brought to light.
I think that makes it a little bit difficult for Bill to actually do his job.
Yes.
Especially because Capilupo is a huge developer in the area, developing all the way from Salisbury to here.
Right.
That's not in defense of Capilupo, absolutely not. But that limits Bill to what he can actually do as a job if we say, okay, that's a huge conflict of interest. Now, that being said, I still think in the first place, with the Community Development Board, again, no matter what argument is made, it should have been stopped right then and there.
Well, see,
we should fill in those vacancies.
Jana, call into the show, okay? Because you make a great point. And I'm just going to read her comment. She says, I just have difficulty with the two wrongs don't make a right analysis. The first wrong is complete corruption by interfering with a proper legal process, most likely rising to the level of illegal conduct. That is a judgment that it rise. We all think that, but that's a judgment, okay? That didn't play out. It hasn't played out yet. The second wrong is following a proper process. You may disagree with it, but it doesn't rise to the level of illegality or corruption. It's not two wrongs. I'm not saying it's corrupt, okay? What I'm saying, yes, it is wrong. For them to try to stop this on the historic argument is wrong.
Mm-hmm. And I think what is important here is I think you have to separate.
It's abusing the system. It may not be illegal, but it is abusing the system in the same way that these folks say it was abused on now, not to the same level. I'm not saying that.
Right. I think you can't link these three issues. There is whether it's legal for them to develop the property they want to develop. There's the actions of the mayor and the board, and then there's this gambit right here. I think you have to take them separately and deal with them separately. You can't link them because you can't, as Jana says, you can't weigh them like Lady Liberty.
So
you can't pick the least of three evils. You've got to deal with them on the level that they're on.
So
this is eminent domain, is what we're talking about right now.
So Rich, I just want to say this I agree with Lou.
No, kind of on this one.
No,
I think
that is the core of my problem with it. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are different issues.
Right.
To try to link them, and to try to
balance them.
Make the discussion about the corruption while you're talking about the historic, that's where I have a problem with.
Right.
And let's just zoom out on this. And Ryan DeZoglio, I hope you're feeling better, by the way.
Hi, Ryan.
Let's just zoom out.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Condon, whatever you think of him, he has served the city well for 4 decades. He's been a business owner. He's been a counselor. He's been a school committee member. And again, I'm not defending. All I'm saying, and this was the core of my comment last night, it's just sad. It is sad. It's sad that this is the way he goes out of town. It's sad that this has come to the point where, because of the really improper developments on the Community Development Board side, now this is coming before the Council and Historic, forcing them to make a decision that they shouldn't have to make. This should have been dealt with at the Community Development Board level. Mm-hmm. It can't be, because they don't have a quorum right now, because it's really sad how the ending of this.
Let me put it in a way that I think everyone can relate to in this issue. Tim, you're going to go sell your house. You want to move out of Methuen. And the Historic Commission comes to you and says, you know, some Minuteman's horse left some manure here in the late 1700s, so we're going to prevent you from selling the house.
Hold on one second. Just Jana, 978-659-0072. Anybody else that wants to call in, 978-659-0072 if you're watching this live between 11 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. on Thursday the 16th.
Or you own a house and you want to put an addition on, and some Minuteman's horse left some manure here in the late 1700s. You can't put an addition on your house. You can't sell your house at the price. You can't sell the house to the person you want to sell it to because they're not going to follow it. This is the problem with the Historic Commission, and it has to be reined in. Mike Condon has a property. He has private property. Within his legal rights, he should be able to do what he can do within his legal rights. This is not a this has never been a Historic Commission issue to this point. It shouldn't be now.
No.
This is about a person's private property and his right to do what he wants to do with it, or what he can legally do with it.
Now, the other issue, I agree with Lou. I mean, he just boiled it down.
I mean,
we should rename the show I Agree with Lou.
Pretty much. I agree with you now. No, but looking at
through you, Tim. Through you, Tim. I agree with Lou.
Through you, Tim, to Lou.
This is incredible power to give to a government organization. And it's more incredible power to give to an organization. The Historic Commission isn't elected, is it? It's not, right?
I believe it's appointed.
Appointed. It has no responsibility, it has no accountability. It's not accountable to the voters.
No.
So these people who were appointed at one point get to decide whether you can sell your house, or whether you can add to your house, or whether you can paint your house a particular color, on seemingly arbitrary means.
And by the way, the other component of this, if we want to talk about ickiness, let's not call it corruption, let's just call it ickiness. Sharon Pollard is the head of the commission. Now, Sharon Pollard and Mike Condon used to be best of friends. They had a very serious falling out over a political issue where Mike did not back Sharon.
I'm very surprised to hear that.
Yes, yeah. They had a big falling out that evolved in ridiculously bad blood, and it just so happens that now Sharon.
I get your point.
So there's just ickiness. Whatever if that's behind it, and that's what Mike is saying. Mike is saying that it's a political issue. Now, listen, again, Sharon Pollard does amazing things for the community. So it's just this is difficult. This is difficult in terms. There's no right side here. I don't think.
In my mind.
I wrong?
In my mind, on this particular issue, given the way it's laid out, the timeline of this, if you give the Historic Commission Methuen the power with which to control private property, to this extent, you deserve what you get.
Rich, if you were on the council... By the way,
John is on the line.
John? Jana?
Jana.
Okay. If you were on the council, how would you have voted?
I would have voted for what the citizens on the west side want. I absolutely would have. And that's from, listening and talking to people.
And we can, and again...
The council represents the people, so if the people have spoken, that's...
And the way
West Side, the people that represent the West Side are backing the West Side folks.
And
Kazanjian, Vidler, they're backing them.
Our councilors at large should be doing the same thing. But then the councilors on the east side, as well, should be looking to Methuen as a whole while they're doing their job.
Isn't Michael Condon a West Side guy?
Yes.
Isn't he one of the constituencies? Are you going to let the city take his land or control what he can do with his land? How are you protecting your constituencies that way?
And again, folks...
That's a good question.
Folks, I want to just start this with Rich. Like, I don't hate you because of your opinion. Like we can have civil discourse and agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
Okay, but ultimately somebody has to make a call on this. So, and we're not the people that are making the call, thankfully, quite honestly. Anyway, Jana, come on in. How are you today?
Hey. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm great. Interesting conversation this morning.
So, I thought you articulated that very well, and in terms of you disagree, and we don't have to go back through your comment, but I'm not equating them, and I'm not calling this equal levels of corruption. But did you hear Lou's point? I
did hear Lou's point, but here's the problem. Eminent domain is something completely different from what's happening here. Good morning, Lou. I love your comments.
I'm going to ask you again.
There's a very important legal distinction to be made there. Eminent domain is when the government comes and takes your property.
No, but
and that's not what's happening.
But I mean, really, at the end of the day, I agree that legal distinction.
Yes.
But I mean, in terms of what actually happens here, Jana, is it that different?
Yeah, no, it's completely different, because this is just saying that the land is going to be, the house is going to be preserved in a particular manner. It's completely different. And I think that it's important. And, I'm not personally involved with this. I'm not in that neighborhood, and I don't have access to
and I said it last night. I said that last night. I don't have skin in the game. Yeah.
Yeah. From everything I heard, it just seems that they're just trying to get to the place where they should have been if the committee was able to go ahead and go through with the proper process.
But do you understand what?
They're just trying to stay within the zoning restrictions.
But okay, so the zoning restrictions, there was enough leeway in there that there was a loophole in there.
I know, Tim, you keep saying that there was a loophole, but I think that was the gist of the legal argument, and the loophole wasn't going to hold up. I think they were arguing under a loophole that they should be able to put all these properties, but I think at the end of the day, that would have been a failing argument. So to say, that we should go through with all of this because there was a loophole, I think the loophole is a legal fail.
So, and it really seemed like it might be. Again, Mike and Wayne might disagree with that. They thought they were winning, but I mean, it really did seem like the city was winning that argument. So let me go back to Lou's point, because Lou was very succinct with it. That he got where I was trying to get to, because I'm tired. I'm not being as succinct.
Sitting at Burger King in the middle of the night.
Yeah, sitting at Burger King at 12:30 at night.
I love it.
Yeah, that was great. But these are two separate issues. That's my biggest issue, is that they're two separate issues, and we're trying to link them, and they're two separate issues. And if we're talking about historic, Jana, nobody's answered this for me. Maybe, and again, you're an objective outsider here in terms of not living in that district. What about this idea that this historic argument had never been made about this property?
Here's the thing, right? We can't govern in a box, and we can't put blinders on when we look at issues. So it's impossible for City Council to look at what's happening at the situation in front of them with the Historic Commission without also considering all the other facts and circumstances. To me, the fact that it's never come up before, it doesn't matter. It's coming up now. It's a valid motion before City Council, and they just have to weigh the facts and circumstances and decide what's right for the community. And in the end, if you look at what's right for the community, it's to follow the zoning.
Okay, but it's, again, that's too, the zoning isn't part of the historic argument. You can't, it's a different argument.
Well, not exactly. I mean, the zoning is part of the historic argument, because if the historic argument prevails, then they're going to have that one house on the property, or they're going to have the existing structures on the property. I mean, it's not, I don't know the best way to say this. They're dealing with the zoning. I mean, they're making a zoning decision, even though they're not coming out and saying that they're making it because of the zoning laws. I mean, ultimately, they're making a decision on zoning because either the existing structures are going to remain on the property, or there's going to be 13 houses on the property.
And by the way, Julie Brady, I'm not sure what is the, I see different last names on her email, but Julie was one of the members that resigned, and Julie came on the comments last night and said that the historic part of it was definitely brought up during the community development board part of it. So I get, I get that it does play into it, but in terms of the specific argument, the zoning isn't part of like determining the historic value of that house. And,
no, it's not.
and-
No, you're right about that. But the city council now does have the opportunity to make a decision about the historic value of the house. And there has been evidence presented that it does have some historic value. And there was evidence presented last night that despite what happened on the inside of the house, that we still just look at the structure
Yep.
and its significance historically. So it's all I'm saying is that when you're saying, you know, this is a wrong and the other one's a wrong and two wrongs don't make a right, all I'm saying is that this isn't wrong. What's happening right now is a proper legal process. And I'm not, listen, whatever council does at the end of the day,
okay, so
I'm not
they
really
have the
advocating
right.
for one result or another, but it's just insulting to me to compare a legal process to an illegal process.
Well, but you're calling it an illegal process, but it has not been deemed illegal yet.
Yes.
Okay. Yet. But I mean, you're a lawyer. Like until something's been deemed illegal, it's not illegal. So I mean.
Well, yeah, but you can say this. So there's no criminal statute that covers what the Historic Commission is trying to do, and there is a criminal statute that covers what happened before. So whether there'll be a prosecution or an investigation, who knows? You're absolutely right. Like right now, but I mean potentially there's the potential there because political corruption, that can be a crime.
And the other part of this that I would like to understand. Now listen, again, we can agree to disagree, and I still respect your opinion. I hope that you can respect mine.
Yeah.
And you always have. If it's so historic, and that's what I just come back to. If this property is so historic, why wasn't it deemed historic before Mike bought the property? And now we're talking about it being historic and as a means to stop the development.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think that's a really valid point, but has anybody ever tried to knock it down before? Because if nobody has ever tried to knock it down before, then there would have been no issue to raise it.
Let me ask
No,
you.
they bring up historic properties all the time and they're not being knocked down.
Let me ask you this question.
The right time to try to protect a property is when it's in jeopardy. So if it had been, I would completely agree with you if somebody had, come before and said, hey, we want to knock this down, and the Historic Commission was silent. And then it just didn't happen for one reason or another. But the right time to bring this issue is when we're going to lose it. Ideally it would be better. You'd be proactive. But yourself, a lot of times, these committees, they're volunteers. They can't be proactive on every single issue. So they deal with things as they arise.
But you also do have to be somewhat consistent. I mean, like every historic property hasn't been brought. Like the reason they've made or tried to make things historic, if you have
a current historic property, can you demo the inside of the property?
You can make adjustments.
Yeah,
the interior, you can make adjustments.
Like you could,
they have.
from what was said last night. It sounded like they're just trying to preserve the structure, which to me makes sense. I mean, we don't want to put so many restrictions on people and their private property, but we do want to preserve important structures, for our history. So that, to me, seems like a reasonable place to draw the line.
So, Jana, let me just throw this hypothetical out to you. So, and by the way, as an aside, if you're playing city council bingo, the boards were filled last night. It was insane. At the end of the day, kicking the can down the road, just to justify through you, Madam Chair. Oh my goodness, it was crazy. It was awesome. But okay, hypothetically, let's just say this, and so let's just say we want to preserve it. Okay, so let's just say that it's demolished down to the bare bones of the house, that it's essentially left in the middle of the property as a monument, and we call the development Dow Estates. Is that honoring it?
Is that honoring it? Are they thinking of doing that?
No, I'm throwing out a hypothetical.
I think if they can maintain so this is like completely off the cuff. I would say that if they're going to maintain that property and the land around it in a way that kind of preserves its historical significance, I would say that's fine. I don't see how you can do that when you jam in 13 houses onto 4 acres.
Well, I mean,
then it completely changes the whole,
and again,
the whole situation.
Again, I'm not a planner. I haven't drawn up the plans for this hypothetical scenario. But let's just say, because a lot of these properties now are being built around a circle. There's like a circle of road. I mean, let's just say that these properties are built around a circle, and in the middle of the circle is this monument to Thomas Dow.
The 13th house.
Is it the house? Is the house the monument?
They could move the core of the house into the island, that is inside the roundabout, and make that a monument to Thomas Dow.
I don't know that addresses all of their concerns, right? They're saying they want to maintain the existing structure. This sounds like a really interesting plan.
I mean, of course it doesn't. Okay, and Nick DeZoglia is here, and listen, I do want to discuss residency checks with you, Jen. Can you stay on with us?
I can stay on with you, but I don't want to hog up Rich's whole show. I want to hear from Rich.
Yeah, absolutely. Get Rich in here too, but I do. We got another 35 minutes to go. I don't want to spend the whole time on Sweetheart Ann because there's just too many issues this week.
Can I respond to Jenna's position, however?
Do it.
Absolutely.
I understand your position that you're talking legal versus illegal because you're a lawyer. And I understand that, and there may be historical commission provisions which they have the right to do legally. My point is I want the citizens of Methuen to ask themselves how much control they want to give the historical commission over what they can do with their private property.
And just quickly, because I don't want to get Jana in trouble here. So you are technically not a practicing lawyer, correct?
I am not practicing law right now. I am
okay, that's fine.
Currently, let's say, retired from the practice of the law.
But you have a law. Your law degree is still valid.
Yes.
But you are not.
I am not legally
offering,
involved with this matter.
You are not offering legal advice.
I am not
in
offering
situation.
legal advice.
Okay,
and I'm not questioning. I'm not questioning
with a law degree.
I'm not questioning the legal right of the historical commission to run this gambit because apparently they have it. I'm appealing to the people who have to vote on it. I'm appealing to the citizens debating this that they need to understand the power that they're handing over to someone else over their personal property if they support this move.
And by the way, Nick DeZoglia, who I'm not going to bring you on at the same time, because I'm not looking to run a Maury Povich show here, but Nick did want to come on as well. We'll give him the opportunity after we talk to Jana. But Nick is also chiming in on this. A good point. Are we talking about the building we want to save or the property? That's another. That's a core discussion, even if I bring up that hypothetical.
Sounds like the commission's talking about the building.
The commission is talking about the building and honoring Thomas Dow. I don't think the residents really
I think the residents
are talking
want
about
both.
that at all.
I think the residents want the building to stay, be fixed up, restored, nothing built on that property.
Because the residents, if this were a two-house
they said
proposal
it last
here,
night. One of them said it last night.
They wouldn't
that
give
would
her.
be Mike. Mike said it.
Did Mike say
houses.
it? I thought
Mike's
a couple others said.
If this were a two-house proposal, they wouldn't give a rat's ass about Thomas Dow.
And it has been said before, so we're not putting words in people's mouth. It may not be the consensus opinion of the community, but it has been said by community members. Let me take a quick break. Again, very much appreciate the comments. We'll get to everybody's comments, but let's take a break here. Next up, want to talk about what happened at the school committee meeting on. God, the days are blending. Tuesday night. We'll talk about that. Jana is on the school committee. We'll talk about that. Take a quick break here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. All right, a big shout out to the folks over at AFC Urgent Care. They've been big supporters of us since the beginning as the title sponsor of Ranger Nation Radio, and we are big fans of theirs. AFC Urgent Care, the right care right now. You'll never need an appointment. Got that persistent cough and cold, that cut that needs a few stitches, or need a sports physical and don't want to wait weeks to get into your primary doctor? AFC's streamlined approach helps you be seen quickly and feel better fast. In Methuen, in the Merrimack Street Medical Professionals Building, 380R Merrimack Street. In North Andover as well, in the Burton Grill Plaza. 8 to 8 Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 Saturday and Sunday. Go to afcurgentcare.com for more details. Back here on Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. Tim Wood, Rich LaRochelle. Rich, I called you pundit extraordinaire in the description of the show. How would you describe yourself?
A concerned citizen.
Very okay, yeah.
And I'm trying to get involved. You know, I've been telling people, okay, well, how can we make a difference in this community? Well, first we can start voting.
Yeah.
That's a huge way to change what's going on in the landscape of Methuen, is to make sure you're getting to the voters and making sure that we have change going on. The people who are sitting in office need to change with the times, instead of saying, well, if people want to get to me, they should call me directly. Well, yeah, maybe you should put your opinion out there and tell us. How do you feel about this? I want to know their sides to everything as well. You know, I will listen. I'm open-minded. I don't necessarily agree with anyone on everything, but I'm willing to listen.
And I do listen. I want to give you, because Jenna, was right there in terms of, like, you're on. I want to give you the chance to speak too, other than just say I agree
That's
with you.
okay. I think Jenna's wonderful.
You made a good point in the break, in terms of just what, the full gambit of what this is about. It's not just about legality.
Well, there's some morals involved in all of this, Are we doing what's right? I mean, corruption, like we talked about, doesn't just come down to legality. It comes down to morality as well. Are we doing what's right? And that's a big question.
And, we can get in trouble this is how lawsuits happen. You can get in trouble by saying it's corrupt and calling it illegal. It hasn't been proven that what happened with the Community Development Board is illegal. If you read the minutes from the meeting, it really stinks. It reeks of it. It stinks. It needs to be investigated. And again, Tina Conway, the former city clerk, she was on the comments last night, and she brought it up, a charter investigation, 211 in the charter. And again, we've been so wrapped up on the police contracts that this is taken back burner. Yeah. Where's the investigation? That needs to be ramped back up, and that is a council investigation. That is not a state investigation. That can be run by the council. And I think at this point, it needs to happen. And so, okay, Jenna, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, so Tuesday night. And Jenna, just in full disclosure, Jenna writes for Loop Weekly. She came to us, and we mutually came to each other, honestly, just in terms of, writing a column to keep folks informed in terms of what's happening on the school committee. And so she started this column that we named In Committee, and she has done just that. And done a great job. So, and then she's does some other writing. She started another column called My Favorite Things, which I love. I mean, as someone newer to the area, I'm from New England, but in terms of the North Shore and such, it just gives tons of great ideas how to do inexpensive things with the family. So, but in this specific case, now we're talking about what happened at the school committee meeting on Tuesday night, and Jenna is a school committee member, Jenna DiNatale. So, Jenna wrote a column in terms of residency checks, and it is a heated discussion. the superintendent brought up the case of whether is it really as relevant as we think it may be in terms of the number of cases. A lot of folks feel that because we live on the border and because they're constantly seeing, taxis of kids being brought to school, they're seeing New Hampshire license plates, that we have a residency issue. Now, the numbers per se do not bear that out in terms of the volume of discovered cases. That doesn't mean we've done the due diligence to properly.
We should bingo that.
Due diligence is now part of bingo for sure. That was said like 8 times last night.
It was said during the school committee meeting.
It was indeed.
Quite a few times as well.
It was indeed. So, but it is something that the schools are supposed to be doing. And Jana brought this up. She's brought it up multiple years now as a member of the committee that there has not been a full residency check done since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Jana, I will let you make your case in a nutshell.
Thanks, Tim.
Yes.
Actually, I think I was happy at the end of the meeting that we seemed to be able to move towards some consensus on the issue. It always surprises me, and maybe now that we're in the third year of these discussions, maybe it shouldn't be surprising me, but I'm always surprised when we bring up the topic of doing a residency check and that it's controversial, because to me, it's just it's kind of a no-brainer. Our policy requires that we take a vote on it, and every year I bring it up and I ask that we take a vote, and I suggest that we do a full residency check. Because to me, it's just about accountability to the taxpayer, right? That's all it's about.
Yes.
It's not suggesting our administration isn't doing their job. It's not suggesting that we have a problem. It's just that I'm not going to make the assumption that we don't have a problem when we have no data to back that up.
Yes.
Basically, we haven't done a check since 2011. We have no idea, other than the spot residency checks that we've done, basically like one grade at a time. We have no real indication of what's going on in terms of whether people have moved out of the district, whether people are, frankly, registering their kids using a friend's address or cousin's address. Our policy isn't perfect, but we've worked really hard over the past few years to try to get it to exactly where it needs to be to address the issues. No policy is ever going to be perfect, but I don't think it's right to wait for a perfect policy. Our policy is really good. It's been reviewed by legal counsel. It's not going to catch everybody, but it's going to catch the majority of people if we do a full check. So I just say let's do the check. Let's see where we're at. Let's get the data so that we can then make good decisions moving forward.
And one of the things that really was frustrating is this concept that misinformation, and it just was like, let's not speak in circles here. If you're gonna call somebody out, just call them out. Mm-hmm. It's like, so this idea that misinformation was put out there, and it's. Am I wrong? Am I wrong in the idea that it was pointed right at you?
Yeah. For sure. And what's frustrating for me sitting at that meeting? It's very tough because all of my efforts have been directed towards just raising awareness, and I think we've seen more of this from certain members of the council too. We're hearing the public say, we want to be involved in these decisions. We want transparency. We want you to tell us what's going on before it happens, not after you already made a decision. So I know that there are a lot of families who have come to me and said, hey, we have concerns about this. I don't know whether those concerns are justified, so I think we do the investigation. My goal in all of the outreach wasn't to sway people one way or another, and I'm hoping that, for folks that have read my columns or seen my posts, I'm hoping that that's abundantly clear. I think I've tried to say it in a way that is abundantly clear. So it was really hurtful.
Some might say crystal clear,
at that meeting and have people saying that I'm, swaying the public or putting misinformation out there. It's simply not true.
You're using a forum that anyone can use. Now, listen, whatever you think of social media, I mean, there's a lot of good to it. There's a lot of bad to it, okay? And part of the bad that's come up in this, and we can't ignore it, is that some folks have kind of co-opted this to make this a race issue, and that this has to do with
coming from the Hampshire
minorities. Yeah, this has to do with minorities, abusing the system, and life in Methuen isn't the way it used to be, and this is a way for us to fight it. In a nutshell. That's not what Jana's saying. Let's just make that clear. Folks have kind of co-opted the discussion in the comment section in different areas of social media to raise that. And one of the parents, Jessica Santiago, got up and made a just very impassioned, very concise plea that we do not make this about race. That if we're going to do a residency check, do a full residency check. Do not target specific areas of the city.
Who's proposing that?
It's not the committee, but I mean it's.
This is the voter ID issue all over again. You either reside in the district or you don't. This is race free.
Exactly.
Yeah, I felt like Jessica was just saying that this isn't. I felt like she was agreeing like this isn't a race issue.
Yes,
this
she
is
was.
Just about
Absolutely.
finding out who's living in Methuen.
She agreed that we should do this as well. It's just let's do a full one. Let's not target specific. Specific parts of the city, for instance, that we may think are a problem.
Sure.
And we would never do that. We would never target a particular minority group or a particular area
Jennifer
of the city.
Santiago,
That's why we're suggesting a full check.
Thank you.
So in other words, don't just check specific schools. Check the entire system. It's fine. Everyone's on board.
My goal is to check the full district.
Yeah.
Check all students.
Just to be clear,
verify residency.
Just to be clear, it's Jennifer Santiago. Thank you very much, Aldely. For correcting that. I had Jessica on my brain.
How do you feel about an annual update on residency? Because part of the problem with special education, for example, and budget issues throughout Massachusetts have been influx of students from other districts in for whatever reason. And if you don't maintain this type of check on at least an annual basis, if not a semester basis, you're going to fall behind the curve here.
And we have now. We're 7 years behind the curve now.
Yep.
Part of the problem with this, and people keep asking me, they're like, tell me the numbers. How much is this going to cost? How much time is it going to take? How many people are we going to find?
And Bob Vogler made that point, Jana. He made that point that the last time we did this, it took 4 months and six secretaries that probably no longer work for the district because of the cuts.
Well, wait a second,
who's going to do the residency check?
Haven't we decided that the $4 million deficit in the schools this year was based on influx of students?
Yes,
well,
but
those are new students coming into the district.
There's
but
your
I think
input.
What's important is that when we're looking at this, we have, when Bob says that, I haven't seen any specific data to have come out of that 2011, and I think it just, it wasn't there. We didn't track the hours, the specific hours that it took people to do the check.
Yeah.
And I think that now we're paying attention, and we can do that so that we can say next time, hey, was this really worth it? Like if we check the whole district and we catch 10 students, and those students aren't receiving special services, so they're not costing us any additional money, then it comes down to what the community wants. Is it worth it do people think that we should be spending our resources to catch those 10 students when it's only like this dollar amount of savings? That's something for the community to let us know what they feel and what they want, because ultimately that's a decision that should be made by Methuen residents. We're there sitting on the committee on their behalf, and we have to listen to them. And part of listening to them is engaging in this sort of conversation. But we can't have that sort of conversation right now because that sort of specific data isn't available from the last check. We know, we can say how many kids, but we don't know the hours that went into it. We don't know how many staff members were working on it compared to how many staff members we had. I actually haven't seen that data, and I've asked for data with regard to the prior checks. I haven't been given any sort of specific data, so I'm assuming that it's not, readily available.
Yeah,
I don't think there was a reason to be keeping those sort of records, because I don't think anybody intended to rely on them in the future for a process like we're talking about now to determine how we move forward. But we have to be able to forecast.
So we are on a clock today. I would encourage you to be succinct and speak in sound bites. But so I do want to address a couple of things that have just come up in the comments. Wendy was asking, who do you call if you know someone is in the school system and they don't live in the town? Jana Zani Pesh came on and said there's a hotline number on the Methuen Public Schools website. It's now right on the homepage. So that is who you call?
Yes.
Okay. So... Okay, and Nick, I just please make it clear in the comments if you do want to come on, because I do want to give you time as well. But I do want to ask you, Jana, because I had to leave because you all were incredibly verbose, and I was on a family clock despite the typhoon outside. I had to be home to mash the potatoes by 7:30.
It actually stopped.
Nice.
It stopped when I walked outside.
Oh, it was insane.
It was completely dry as I left.
Yeah,
I left.
Tuesday was a ridiculously bizarre weather day. I think that's one thing we could all agree on. Okay, so but let me ask you this, because I was not there at the end of the meeting. You said that by the end there was a consensus, which kind of blows my mind. But
you're gonna love it.
Yeah, so at the end, after listening to everybody's concerns, I felt like I could amend the motion that I had originally intended to make, which was just to do a full residency check this year. I heard the superintendent and our staff saying, we just can't do it this year. We'll have to divert resources from other things that are important. So what I suggested was a half residency check this year, half of all of our students, the other half get done next year, that we set out that timeline, and then we let the superintendent do it in a way that works best for her, because really my goal is to get it done. It's her job to decide how best to do it, so I'm okay with that. I think it's difficult if we don't move forward, if we don't take action.
I mean,
so my goal was to get some action on this. It's been 3 years.
Even if you did
we agreed that we wouldn't check students like kindergarten students and high school students who had just completed a check next year, because it doesn't make sense to do it again. We're just trying to get it done.
Even if you did it a quarter of the city and you made it clear that there was no targeting going on, but that a quarter of the city would be done every year,
Good luck with that argument.
So that it would, well, exactly,
Yeah.
but that it would rotate. At least something is being done every year. You know?
Yeah.
quarter of the year, you wouldn't even have to rotate. You just leave it on the same grades every single year.
There seemed to be consensus.
Quarter's too long.
so-
Half was amenable.
It seemed like it. I mean, it
like
seemed
that
like
word.
the mayor seemed to think it was agreeable by his comments. It seemed like Bob Vogler seemed to think that would be an agreeable compromise. So I hope that we're able to get this done for the people in Methuen and move forward.
Okay, Jana, I hugely appreciate joining us by phone. I want to get you in very soon here, back in
thanks for
studio. Very much appreciate your input as always, and the time and the efforts that you put into the stuff you do for the newspaper and for the community overall. Very much appreciate. Now, just one plug, because I saw you posted some sort of fundraiser.
Oh, I
Now
love
you're announcing
Facebook.
that.
They let you do a fundraiser for your birthday. So I was looking at it this morning. It popped up on my feed, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to do that and raise money for MAIC. Just like randomly pick them because they're awesome. So if anybody wanted to wish me a happy birthday, you can do it with like a $2 donation to MAIC on my Facebook page.
Nice. I like that. All right. Today's your birthday?
No, my birthday's August 30th, but for some
okay,
reason
so
it
in
pops up in
advance.
advance on Facebook.
Nice.
So I
Now
did it
you're
right
letting
away,
the
so I
world
wouldn't-
know.
Nice. Okay. Huge thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Have
right.
a great morning, guys.
You
Bye.
as well. Thanks. That's Jana Di Natale. Nick DeZoglio, 978-659-0072 is the number to call. 978-659-0072. Rich.
Now, before we move on from Janice, one other thing I'm not sure I heard her mention.
You were there
is
for the whole meeting.
For almost the whole
Yeah.
meeting. Up until the pizza taste testing portion.
Yes. Okay.
And that had a little funny in it as well. But Jana, what she did was she listened to everybody's concerns. She amended, that policy.
Her approach.
Yeah, her approach.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought that was fantastic, because normally they have that 3-4 month time span they want to get it done in. She actually said, here, you've got the entire year to do half the school, and an entire year to do. We understand that the secretaries,
Yeah.
The reduction, it's very difficult to get that stuff done. So giving them a timeline of the entire school year to get that done for one half, I think is better than where we were, waiting 5, 6, 7 years to get
Everyone
something done.
understands the current plight in terms of the.
I don't necessarily feel like all the committee members believe, or at least the way they were speaking during the meeting, don't believe that this is even close to an issue. I mean, I keep hearing arguments of, at max, 50 people, maybe, in our schools that don't belong.
Well,
There can't be more than 20 or 30 people illegally voting. No, that can't be happening. It's not happening out there.
I was thinking myself, a reasonable number I would think would be about 4%.
Listen,
of the people,
it's
300.
2018. There are divided families. There are divorces all over the place. Residency changes. Kids change. This is a very fluid situation, and you have a town that is pinching its pennies right now. It has to know.
They brought up 3 specific cases that they found during the June checks that speak exactly to what you're talking about. A family moved to Tewksbury, divided family.
Yep.
I mean, these things happen.
Yep.
Now, it literally might be 50 cases. That it may be that 50 it's just 50 cases that are called in and in concern. That might turn into just 20 of them actually being a concern. That's not the issue. The issue is nobody. Every student in the system costs $12,000.
That's right.
So there shouldn't be one issue.
That's by my high school math. That's well over $500,000.
We are
50
not.
kids.
Yes, we are not math. And we were talking numbers. Yeah, we were doing the math. So Nick's here.
Nick's on. Yep.
Nick, how are you? Nick DeZoglio, Vice Chairman of the school committee.
Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Hey, Nick.
God, Rich, I was disappointed that you left. I really wanted to shake your hand the other night.
You know what?
We introduce ourselves in person.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Lou. You turned them up a little bit. So, Nick, and you made the comment, and you made this point during the meeting, and I thought it's a very fair point that we have 7,200 students, and if there really was a huge residency issue, that student count would probably be closer to 8,000 if there really was a full-on abuse of the system. Am I paraphrasing that
8,000
correctly,
or
Nick?
800?
8,000 students. 800 additional.
Oh, 800
That would be
additional.
800 additional, yeah. No,
Okay.
you're absolutely right on point here. So I right now, personally, I oversee headcount across a major company, all right? And we see the fluctuations, and I see the graphs, and I see everything. I look at our population of 50,000 people, all right, and it's definitely more than that, and we'll see that in the census come next year. We have a big family population here. We don't really have a big, yes, we have, an over 50 population and millennial population, but we have a majority of a family population here in the city. And these families, generated, let's think about a 2 plus 3 kids maybe per household. So the numbers aren't staggering. We live next to Lowell. We live next to Haverhill. We live next to Lawrence. I doubt there's a lot of people from Andover and North Andover coming to Methuen. So, and Salem, New Hampshire, I don't see that transpiring either, because you have 2 new schools already built up there now.
Although we have some very good specific programs in Methuen that folks want to find a way into, and that speaks very well of our teachers and our administrators in creating those programs. Quite honestly,
You're absolutely correct. I am not against the residency check. I'm not against doing a full one. I'm against doing a full one today.
yes.
If this was a conversation that started 6 months ago to prep our team to do it, that's like me throwing a bill of $1,000 on your desk, Tim, today and saying you need to pay for it by October 1st. You might have the means to pay that. You may not have the means to pay that. That's what and it's not, it's not making the residents' lives difficult or trying to make it easier and have them prove it. It's the staff that we have. We have a due diligence to the taxpayer, but we're also an employer. We're an employer. We have our students, we have our teachers, we have our staff. We're about to start the school year with a deficit. We're about to start a school year with a less of a staff, and we're about to start a school year where we're implementing technology for our students and our parents. So we're doing it now. This just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so somebody, and I don't think it was Jana per se, but somebody brought up the idea of holding back the iPads and making that part of a residency check.
The kids need that.
Outside of the idea that we were coming up, and I'm not going to name names here. It's an idea to help with the process of if we had to go this route. And I understand. If we needed to get a residency check done right away, we would have to come up with ideas about it. And one of my ideas was, you know what, parents and students that play sports, they have skin in the game.
And I thought that was a great point. Absolutely, like those are specific. And again, but then you're targeting specific groups, and it's like and then.
Oh no.
But I thought your point was great in terms of the urgency. Like you want to play sports, prove that you live here.
Same thing would go for bands and theater and foreign language and AP. It'd be across the board. It's ideas to make the process easier, and it would be hands-on deck with guidance counselors, the athletics.
Jenna, I know the iPads was not your idea. I was trying to make that very clear.
Yeah.
So Nick.
No, it wasn't Jenna's idea.
Yeah, no.
Nick, I've got a hard out here of 12:22.
Yeah.
So I just bought you 2 more minutes.
You understand I have control over that, right?
Nick is laughing. I mean, Lou is laughing at me. So you might want to say I agree with Lou, Nick.
Yep.
But, although Nick also does agree with Lou quite often. It was like this mutual affection society when Nick came in studio.
I like
Nick didn't even look at me. It was like he was talking to Lou the whole damn time.
Sorry, Nick. I'm actually number 1 on the Lou fan club.
I don't
you can
know.
be number 2.
I don't
you can
know.
be like vice president.
I don't know. Nick was in the building first, and it was pretty strong. Anyway, I digress.
Stars around. It's a
Yes.
slow motion moment for me with stars around his head.
There's some bromances going on. That's all I'll say, and I love Lou too, in a very bromancy way. Anyway, so okay, let's get back on point because we do have a heart out. So, how do we do this? If the idea is, and there is some consensus around, let's do half per year. Is it odd grades one year, even grades the next year? I mean,
that would be the same kids.
You get the same kids.
You get the same kids because if you so you have to do it the same grades every year. Do it every other grade.
Oh gosh,
Tim's tired.
I am not.
I mean, kindergarten already has to be done every year, so that's pretty much out of it. Isn't that correct, Nick?
Yeah, that boy.
It would be kindergarten.
Shut off my mic, Lou.
That's a good idea.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So you would do? How would you do it?
So it's kindergarten, preschool, and your freshmen get redone every year because you have to re-register when you're transferring from 8th grade to the high school. Now, here's the thing. I think I like the policy we have. Could it be updated? Yes. If it's the right thing, do I agree that we should have a full residency check maybe every 3 to 5 years? Yes. We should add it into the policy, not make it, a month out saying we need a full residency check. We should put it in the policy that every 3 years we do another one, or every 4 years, and that preps our staff, preps the notion that it needs to happen. But the policy also states that the superintendent gets to pick the grades too, which is fine in my eyes. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at implementing things overnight, and I'm not saying Jana's heart is in the right place.
Yes.
Everyone's heart is in the right place in this committee.
And and that's what I've always said, Nick, as a boss, as a leader, I can always work with passion. Like if we can't if it's all based in passion, we can get to a common ground. And I think
absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a real quick question, Nick. I see on the thing. It says, since when do we register 8th to 9th grade? Maybe you can answer that.
When you go to the high school, you are to re-register. Now, it might be proven identity, but when you're going into high school, you need to mark off that you are a resident, and there is some sort of proof that they are, and that's under my intention.
And that was for Jennifer Creation.
Nick, a number of people brought this up. This was brought up at the meeting. The superintendent, Judy Scannell, made the point. How do we get our money back from these people? that family that
You're
was
not gonna see a dime.
I know, but I want my $12,000 back.
For all 50 kids.
It goes back, but it goes back to the cities and states, and it's accountability too. Because here's the thing: we're a committee that have full-time jobs or families.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a full-time job. People come to me and say, "Nick, you're a school committee member. I mean, is that a full-time job?" No, it isn't. And it's not that I complain about it not being a full-time job, but at the end of the day, we hire and we have advisors on the school department that advise us, and they are hired to do the job that we put in place, the policies. These are their full-time jobs. So I have complete confidence in the superintendent and her administration. But at the end of the day,
that's three. Now listen, that's 3 times now in 2 minutes, Nick.
Bingo.
At the end of the day.
Bingo, bingo, bingo.
I'm just saying.
Yep, I caught that too.
bingo, sir. At the end of the day, there you go.
Yes, Jason, that is me.
It is Rich. Yes.
So we will never see a dime, but we should hit up the city because they should be taking tabs on their students that are going to other schools. We need to put accountability in our teachers, our principals, and the parents of our community that are raising these voices. If you're driving your kid home and you're taking 3 friends into Lawrence because I saw a comment there, your job as a taxpayer is to help in that process because clearly they're getting by. Same thing where I got a letter from a teacher that says, "Oh, I have all these students in Lawrence, from Lawrence." Well, if that's the case, make sure you're reporting it to your principal, for God's sake.
Absolutely. All right, Nick, I do have a heart out. I do have to get out of here. I hugely appreciate you, as always. Appreciate the job you do. Yes.
One last thing.
Yes.
I know you have a heart out.
Yep.
But I also want to bring up that at the end of that meeting last night, or Tuesday, I put it on the school committee that we are going to provide the minutes of every approved meeting and after every posting of our video, a link to the city council, sending it to the city council, and leaving it to them for the accountability to now watch our meetings and to read our minutes.
Awesome.
It's a transparency piece. I think it also bridges the gap. I actually have already had 3 emails from Jen Kinnan today about the home rule petition. So the relationship between the school committee and the city council just grows every day with the leadership that we have in place.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, Nick.
important.
Nick DeZoglio, Vice Chair of the school committee, as always, thank you for joining us. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you all in the comments section. Thank you, Rich LaRochelle. Is it LaRochelle?
LaRochelle.
LaRochelle.
Yep.
Huge thank you to Lou, as always. One thing I want to say, really quick. If you support what we're doing here on Looped In Live, because I don't plea enough on this. I don't. I don't promote enough. And if you support what we're doing on Looped In Live, if you support what we're doing on Loop Weekly, tell our advertisers that you're listening to the show, that you love it, and if you are a business owner, talk to us. Call me, Tim at loopweekly.com. Sponsor the show. Sponsor Ranger Nation Radio. Sponsor Loop Weekly. We need you, and we need folks to get more involved here, to pay the bills. Quite honestly. So the conversation is going to continue online. As I mentioned, we're going to do a couple of Facebook Lives around the Sweetheart Inn as the week goes on. For now, Tim Wood, Rich LaRochelle, Lou. I agree with Lou.
I agree with Lou.
I agree with Lou.
Hashtag I agree with Lou.
It's time to leave. Next week, Looped In Live, presented by Methuen Family Health Center. Till next week, thank you. As always, we'll talk to you next Thursday.